Hi, I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Montgomery College has several important issues ahead of it. It's on its agenda as it looks ahead to the legislative session, the 2015 General Assembly. Brad Stewart, Provost of the Takoma Park, and let's not forget Silver Spring campus of Montgomery College, is here to talk all about this with us. CSAAC, Community Services for Autistic Adults and Children, runs extensive programs throughout Montgomery County. We've got Ian Paragol, Executive Director of CSAAC, who's here to explain about all these great programs. This month's trending topics for Montgomery County's League of Women Voters, or the Montgomery County League of Women Voters, is domestic violence. Elaine Apter from the League is here to tell us what's going on. The issue of background checks and ways that schools can address employees who've been accused of violating children has recently been in the news. Fred Evans, who regularly comments on education programs for this wonderful program, I'd like to say Montgomery Week in Review, is here to explain. Thank you. Brad, welcome back.
Hi, Don.
It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
So, Montgomery College, you don't have any issues before the legislature. You're the top academic institution of kind throughout the United States of America. Happy students, happy faculty, happy staff. Why would you have any issues, Brad?
Well, I guess I wouldn't call them issues. We have needs.
Okay.
In order to help build on our record of student success, this year we've decided to focus on closing the achievement gap. We have an achievement gap at the college. We own that. We're facing up to it, and we'll be seeking some resources for support.
Explain that achievement gap at the college, because I'm in awe of Montgomery College.
Okay.
And so what is that achievement gap?
Well, on all the measures we use to gauge student success, grade point average, transfer, number of credits earned,
right,
et cetera, students from white and Asian families do better than students from African American and Latino families. It reflects the achievement gap that's present in public schools across the country.
And continues on.
And continues on.
Okay.
And we've decided we need to put a stop to it.
What kinds of things do you want to do?
Well, we have a number of programs that have been very promising. Mentorship programs that provide wraparound services for our students.
What's a wraparound service?
Many of our students who are struggling are just, say, one car repair away from an educational and economic disaster in any given semester. And so they've put in 10 weeks of hard work. They're getting A's and B's in their courses. All of a sudden they can't get to school for 2 weeks. And so we need to be able to provide services, emergency loan services for students who do that. We need to provide tutoring services in some disciplines, mathematics in particular, to help our students. We need counseling support for our students as well. We have a number of pilot programs that we've been doing, but now we need the resources from the state and the county to get them up to scale.
Okay.
Do you do anything with child care? What about mothers, young mothers?
Yep, we have child care facilities on all three campuses. The child care business is a tough struggle for higher education institutions because students don't drop the kids off at 8 in the morning, come back at 5 in the afternoon. Sometimes they have classes on just Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that makes it an expensive proposition.
In
the evening.
How about the President Obama's agenda to make it more accessible?
Well,
whoa, I think it's like community college free for everyone.
I was going to say free.
Free. The idea is to make tuition free for most students. So we think that's a game changer or a shift in the terrain for higher education, just as about 100 years ago it became free high school. Now we recognize that it needs to be K through 14 that's free. Having said that, those other problems I just described are still present when tuition is free.
Right.
So we still need support services, wraparound services to help our students be successful. There was an article in last week's paper in the Post about how half of the students in the public schools in this country are from poor families.
Over half who are below the poverty line.
That's correct.
It's
crazy.
Those are our students. Those are the students who come to us, and we need to help them.
And the tuition at Montgomery College is rather reasonable, certainly for the education it receives.
Yeah, and the Pell Grant program for the federal government covers our tuition and books. But there's all that other life stuff that gets in the way that our students need. Childcare, as Elaine pointed out, and all of the emergency loan funds that come up.
5 years from now, Brad, you're czar. Czar Brad Stewart. Czar Brad the First. 5 years from now, tell me about Montgomery College. The best. What would be the best result if all these things came together?
The achievement gap is gone. Our graduation rates have doubled or tripled, and students who are seeking to transfer as an educational goal, those rates have gone up, maybe doubled. In that, there's a promise to all students in Montgomery County: if you come to Montgomery College, in 2 or 3 years you'll leave ready to transfer to a 4-year college or university, or you can leave with a career credential. You can be a nurse, you can be an auto mechanic, you can be a construction manager, and everybody gets a shot at the American dream.
It's not a bad way to look at 5 years. What is the single or the single issue that people don't understand about Montgomery College that you have to answer over and over again within the county? People don't understand.
Although things are much better than when I arrived 10 years ago, there's still a perception that somehow Montgomery College isn't as high a quality as an institution as it really is. And so once in a while you have to explain to folks that you can start here and you can go anywhere. Students in our engineering program transfer to Georgia Tech, Caltech, MIT, and they do as well, if not better, than the students who started there as freshmen.
Has the name change to help dropping the community college or the junior college?
Well, we really didn't have community
5
in
seconds.
there. We just have MC now.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Name change. Brad, thank you. Look
You're
forward to having
welcome.
you back again. Ian,
Here I am.
CSAAC. Now, you've been on before, you've described, but tell us a little bit again about CSAAC.
Sure. We are a human service entity, a nonprofit provider here in Montgomery County. We have an array of services, really lifespan for children through adulthood, ranging from early intervention for little toddlers. We have our own school, the Community School of Maryland, and then we have adult services where we're helping people find jobs in our supported employment program, and we have a very large residential program. We have 51 properties throughout Montgomery County.
And how many clients? I mean, how many
individuals do we support?
How many individuals, right?
In the residential program, there's about 145. And so we try and keep the ratio of less than 3 people per house. Really, a very dense ratio with individuals with autism really doesn't work out. And so, we create a very nice, warm, kind of loving life environment in the community. It's a community-based organization.
Well, in general, how are things going?
In general, they're pretty good. Our biggest difficulties, of course, are budgetary.
Right.
We do a great job. We've been around for 35 years now, and always our struggles involve the budget.
Brad, I'm
Do
sorry.
any of your students or the clients come to Montgomery College?
Actually, yes. We have a couple of individuals that actually are in the Challenger program there, and they're doing great. They have, when needed, some tutors, but they definitely treat it as, this is a course of study, and we want to succeed.
Okay.
And how do you get your clients? Do you
Well,
get
most of them
referrals?
yeah, well, mostly for the adult services program, they'll come through the state. So anybody that's funded through Developmental Disabilities Administration, they'll come through that way. Students will come through different local school programs. So we have a few students from Montgomery County. We have Howard. We have Frederick. So different schools, different counties send their kids to us because they're perhaps not succeeding in the local county schools.
Montgomery County has a bridge program.
Yes.
It's located in a couple schools. Do you work with students who have come through that program?
They may have come through that program. It's really, the Community School of Maryland is really an intensive environment, and it's really for a student that's not experiencing a great deal of success in the
Gotcha.
local school programs. So
And it's the range of autism.
it really is. The individuals that we support, whether that's somebody that's an adult or
Right.
a child, it's going to be a broad base.
Right.
So.
Right.
Now, I tell you, what you're doing is so important. And I hear 145. and the way that the state seems to be operating is that, you know, budgets cuts would go against social services, go against folks who are doing great things for a smaller number. Have you not been in that? By the way, we have a website also, so people can be looking at this while you answer the question.
So thank you very much. So it's 145 people in the residential program, but on a given day, on any day, we serve about 300 people because it's more than just the residential program.
Right.
As far as the budget cuts, you know, we're one of the larger entities here in Montgomery County that do us nationwide because we just serve individuals with autism. A lot of other programs do other services with other disabilities, but we just focus on autism. So the budget's been tough on us. That is the biggest challenge. And the recent reduction that we were expecting a 4% increase in our budget starting in January, and before Governor O'Malley left, there was a reduction to 2%, which is going to have a significant impact. So that's statewide, but in the county we have our own issues as well, because as I'm sure you're aware, the county minimum wage goes up, and it's continuing to go up faster than the state's levels, and there's no real bridge for funding for wages for staff that do that. The biggest piece of this, you know, if you look at our organization, the biggest piece of it is direct support. Of our entire budget, 61% of it goes to direct support staff, and that includes the 50-some houses in Montgomery County and a school.
Because you've got individuals who are at each of those houses.
Right.
You have staff, or else they wouldn't be providing the service.
Yeah, and it's 24/7. You know, the individuals that we're going to support are not really going to be able to get along without some supports, whether it's even learning how to bank or learning different skills in the kitchen or doing laundry, simple things that people would do at home. You know, we're teaching those skills during the day and in the evenings.
Do you have an employment program? Are any of them eligible
Absolutely.
or able to do employment?
We've got about 40 seconds left in the segment.
That's a great question. We have a very extensive supported employment program. In fact, the statistics for our organization exceed those of Montgomery County in general and the state. About 80% of the individuals that we support are actively employed. And the state average is about 17%.
So what's with the elected officials? Why do they keep cutting your budget?
Yeah, Ian?
Yeah, I wish I knew. Maybe we're not tough enough.
That's terrible. I'm sorry, Fred.
No,
We still have time for another question.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So your challenge, where do you go from here?
I think that is our biggest issue. It's all about the money. Because we know that we're going to do fantastic services. We just got to have enough funding to make sure that it can continue.
So 80% success in Montgomery County, 17% statewide in Maryland. It sounds like that's kind of normal unfortunately, for so many things that go on in the state.
I agree. You know, unfortunately, Montgomery County is a very strong environment for the individuals we support.
If only the rest of the state would follow suit. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Elaine Apter, one of our favorite guests on this show.
Here we are again.
Here we are. So League of Women Voters.
Right.
You're looking at DV, domestic violence.
Yes, it's part of the year-long study, almost 2 years, at children at risk. And this is kind of the quiet children at risk many times. In fact, they've also been called the invisible victims. You hear about the mother with domestic violence, sometimes the father, but that child
It's a huge percentage of domestic violence acts take place right in front of children.
Right, correct. And we've got in the trending topics, we've got somebody from Start Smart for Kids, the director, and also Court Watch Montgomery.
Right.
And so they're really going to key in on this, but it really is a serious topic. And it's come to the forefront more with some of these celebrities and like the NFL and things like that. And people begin to realize that it isn't always the poor. We keep thinking of the poor person, it happens throughout the whole thing. And we've been concentrating more on the young adult, almost the high school student.
Right.
And those kids really understand what's going on in that household. And of course, they're told, don't say anything, you know, you can't talk about
Right.
it. So they've got to keep it in, and of course it affects the school.
I had,
They're-
I won't obviously mention any names or situations, but I had a couple situations that were brought to our attention. It's very, very difficult,
Yes.
on especially on the child, because he or she is caught in the middle
Right.
of and doesn't want to.
Yeah, and it's like walking on eggs because
Yeah,
they
yes.
really don't understand what triggers
Right.
the domestic violence, and many times they blame themselves
Well,
that
often
it's
it is.
their
I mean,
fault.
often it's the kids. It's kids and money, as I
Yeah.
understand from reading things. I don't know if it's
That.
developed, but it's not the individual kid. It's the presence of a child that's whatever. But Lori Duker from Port Wash, she's on this show from time to time.
Yes, and
She's helped really keep that the
right,
issue of
and
DV
she's going to be one of the
Right.
speakers, so we're very excited about that. But, you know, interestingly enough, domestic violence is one of the main predictors of juvenile delinquency
Really?
and criminality in adults. So it's really something that we have to take seriously.
Yeah, those kids learn that violence is
Yeah, I
the
mean,
solution, the way to get
that's,
what you
and
want.
that's the only thing they know. That's normality, because most of them don't go to a friend's house. That's not the type of situation they live in and see a normal household. To them, male dominance, and 95, I have to say 95%
Right.
is against the female,
Right.
the wife, the male.
Has the Ray Rice incident kind of brought more people out to talk about it?
I
Certainly
think
been more visible
so.
in the news.
And the other thing is just how it was dealt with, is another thing.
Seems to be a common theme, how it's dealt
How
with. once
that's what we were saying before, is all through the whole thing is how it's dealt with. So
You know, one of the things that's a little bit depressing to me is we seem to we've made so many strides, especially in the 70s and early part of the 80s in equality, and we seem to at times slip back. I mean, I look at some of the songs and the videos that my kids are watching and listening to. I mean, it seems like we're in much of society, culture, we're back to
going
caveman
backward.
times.
Well,
which is crazy.
One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit is the idea of, as the role of the woman has come up and she's become more self-sufficient. She's got an education. She's earning money, and sometimes she's earning more money than the male. That really hits the macho male, and that too can trigger. So some of that possibly has
You'd think that he wouldn't want
triggered.
to mess up kind of the gravy train, you know?
Yeah, but mentally, that's not where
Yeah.
he is.
Pops up
It's
with our
I'm
adult
on
students
top.
from time to time where one of the spouses is at college and develops a set of relationships with their fellow students, and they're moving up in the world, and the other
Jealousies.
partner feels left behind.
Sure.
Right, that's another good
And
point.
Again, they lack the coping skills to express how they're feeling, so they
Or it's a traditional society, immigrant coming around,
Yep.
and the woman is suddenly having
Right.
friends with males, which is tough for that.
Yes,
Hopefully it's
yes.
just transitory, and you're going to help us get to the
Well,
other side.
hopefully we'll find more about it. It's going to be Monday, the 26th of January at the Wheaton Library at 12:15. The public is welcome, and we hope to have a good turnout because it's a very important subject.
Thank you, Elaine.
Okay.
So now we go from protecting mostly women to protecting our most vulnerable, our children in schools. Fred, this is a difficult subject of our kids being exposed to adults who might be doing things that are inappropriate.
It has been an issue as long as I've been in education, where you have situations where either a child is abused or comes under inappropriate behavior from an adult. The situations we're speaking of now, and the school system is dealing with, where there was a private contractor working in one of the middle schools who allegedly, I'll use the legal terms, inappropriately touched a female student. And after looking into the situation, it was reported, but two things occurred. He was working for in this one case, he was working for a contracting company who was installing, interestingly enough, I believe, video equipment in the school.
Security cameras.
Yeah,
The
security
adults were good, right?
and I believe that's true.
Right.
And it was brought to the attention of the appropriate officials. And when the school system did its own the company said that they had done the background check. He had no criminal past. When the school system did the criminal background check, they found that he did have criminal background check. So he should not have been
That he
employed.
had violations in his,
That's
in his
right.
background,
And
right?
it should not have been employed by the school system. That was that issue, and then how the school notified the parents at a much later time than they should have, about a month later.
I think that's,
believe
I
it
saw
was.
that on the news. I mean,
Right.
parents were just inflamed. How could you not tell us this? How could you expose our children? How,
And that's something that the school system really has to do a job on. There is a work group
Right.
now looking into how these matters are handled, because it's not a simple matter. Because we've had, and I'm not suggesting that because it's not simple that it shouldn't be reported appropriately and handled appropriately, but you had years ago a situation where two students came forward on a teacher, and the allegation was not true. They had made it up. That's not an excuse not to follow up appropriately.
but it
but
shows
it's
it
complex.
shows the
It's
complexity
complex.
and the balancing of interest.
The
But
other-
the children have to be at the center.
The other situation that was widely reported in the media had to do with a substitute teacher who inappropriately touched a student, and this person had a prior incidents that, for whatever reason, because of slip-ups or whatever word you want to use, it wasn't brought to the fore, and he continued to be a substitute teacher until this most recent incident, and then he too was arrested.
You know what adds to the complexity of this is we're seeing this now in the HR, human resources world, is the reluctance to provide any kind of bad review to subsequent employers when looking for a reference. Now we're, if they can't say something rosy, they're not going to say anything at all. So it's very difficult to find, I think, more difficult. And so what are some solutions?
Well, I think some solutions are what the system is doing now. I think it's a process that you have to constantly review and constantly inform, because you get new principals in positions, and that it has to be a constant education process for the employers, for the folks who are working in the school system, to know what to do. When little Jimmy or Susie comes to me as a teacher and says, such and
This
such
happened.
happened, I need to know exactly what to do. And typically what that is an employee, I believe this is still true, has the right to call Child Protective Services himself or herself. He doesn't have, he or she doesn't have
Right.
to report it to the principal, if we're talking about a school. I think it's wise to do that, but
To
you
the
don't
principal.
have- yeah,
Right.
yeah, the head of the
why
school.
they're
You
there.
don't have to.
Right.
Now, when the principal gets that information, he or she must follow through appropriately. And the sticky wicket there, I think that's an appropriate term, is that
Mr. Cricket.
how much information you garner as the principal before you report it, and the good case is to find out, get the basic data, and then report it to the appropriate sources, either Child Protective Services or the police.
We've got
When
30
I was
seconds left.
when I was working in a school district, I, as a teacher, had to report, and if it found out that something had happened in my classroom and I didn't report it, I was in trouble.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Absolutely. There is
That kind of-
pressure on the teacher,
The technology
the
that's
classroom person.
It's available these days to do background checks, so there shouldn't be excuses for
I agree.
contractors or for the schools themselves. You can find out whether these people have records or not,
No question,
and it's not that hard.
no question.
Well, Fred, I hope we're going to hear what the results of that special group come back with.
Right.
All right. Appreciate it, Fred. Look forward
Thank
to having
you.
you back again.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for joining me today. I want to thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Mooers, inviting you to join us right here next week at this very same time.